If I could describe my first life in one sentence, it would be this. I built him a throne, and he used it to look down at me. I met Jian when we were 17. The corridors of our elite private high school, usually filled with the murmur of privileged youth, seemed to part for him. He moved through them like a shadow, sharp and unyielding. He was poor, proud, brilliant, the kind of boy who looked like he belonged in tragedy. His uniform, a pristine white shirt and tailored dark trousers, always appeared impossibly clean, a testament to meticulous care for someone who only owned assets. I noticed the careful stitches at the sides of his worn shoes, the rough texture of his hands, calloused from countless part-time jobs. But his eyes were different. They were obsidian chips, sharp enough to cut through anyone who dared offer pity, burning with an ambition that captivated me instantly. Yichen was his opposite. Heir to the sprawling Lu conglomerate, my life was a gilded cage. Polite, cultured, soft-spoken, I had everything money could buy, every opportunity laid out like a red carpet. But I craved something else, something intangible, someone who looked at me like I was real, not just a walking fortune. Jian never looked at me with affection, not the soft warmth I yearned for. Yet, crucially, he never looked at me with disgust either. That neutrality, that blank canvas, was enough for a foolish 17-year-old to project an entire future onto. I hid my identity, a cloak of anonymity I thought necessary, and approached him carefully. A moth drawn to a dangerous flame. The scent of antiseptic still clung to the air from the infirmary. I had watched him crumple in the hallway, his face pale, his frame too thin. You don't need to work so much. I heard my own voice, softer than I intended. Break the silence. There are scholarship funds, private sponsors. He pushed himself away from the wall, his posture rigid. I don't need charity. His words were ice, each syllable a shard. But I didn't give up. His rejection only fueled a quiet determination. I created an anonymous foundation, a ghost entity, its sole purpose to lift him. I paid his tuition, meticulously ensuring no trace led back to me. When he entered university, I funded his apartment near campus, a small space he believed he earned through academic merit. I arranged for his overseas exchange program, a coveted opportunity, and later, invested heavily in his startup when he graduated. He rose quickly, a meteoric ascent. Brilliant CEO. Media darling, self-made genius. The world celebrated his grit, his intelligence, his self-made myth. And I, the unseen architect, stayed behind the curtain, a silent shadow. He truly believed he earned everything. I told myself love didn't need credit. My love, I reasoned, was its own reward. Then he met her. Suran, a socialite's daughter, beautiful with a predatory grace, ambitious, her eyes mirroring the hunger I once saw in Jian's, ruthless, a quality I would soon learn firsthand. The media called her his true love, the perfect partner for the self-made king. The day he married her, I sent a gift anonymously, a small, intricate jade carving. He never knew it was from me. 3 months later, an invitation arrived. A private dinner. The card, heavy and embossed, felt like a summons. I remember the oppressive silence of the private dining room, the crystal glinting under soft lights, reflecting a distorted image of myself. Jian stood by the window, his back to me, the city lights a distant blur behind him. He turned as I entered, a faint smile playing on his lips, his expression unreadable. He poured wine for me, the rich crimson liquid swirling in the glass. I finally found out, he said, his voice low, devoid of surprise, devoid of warmth. I smiled, a fragile mask. You funded everything. He laughed, a cold, brittle sound that echoed in the quiet room. Of course I owe you. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Suran. She moved with an unsettling quietness, her smile too wide, her eyes too bright. She wore a silk dress that shimmered like spilled oil. You know too much, she said lightly, her voice like wind chimes, beautiful and deadly. The wine, a moment ago a symbol of celebration, turned bitter on my tongue. A burning sensation spread through my throat, then a cold numbness. My vision blurred, the elegant room dissolving into swirling colors. Jian's face, once the object of my devotion, was the last thing I saw, his features hardening, his lips forming words I could barely register. You should have stayed in the shadows. Darkness swallowed me whole. I woke up coughing, a violent, hacking sound tearing from my throat. My lungs burned, a phantom ache from the poison that had stolen my breath. The air, thick with the scent of cheap detergent and stale textbooks, scraped against my raw windpipe. Above me, the ceiling was achingly familiar. Cracked plaster, a faint, spiderweb-like water stain near the corner, a constellation of forgotten adolescent angst. My high school dorm room. The same cramped space, the same narrow bed, the same worn desk littered with half-finished assignments. It couldn't be. My hand flew to my chest, pressing against the frantic thump of my heart. It hammered a frantic rhythm against my ribs, a drumbeat of impossible survival. The last thing I remembered was Jian's indifferent face, Suran's chilling smile, the bitter taste of wine, the encroaching darkness. I remembered the cold, the suffocation, the slow, agonizing surrender. Yet here I was, breathing, alive. The morning sun filtering weakly through the grimy window. My phone buzzed on the bedside table, a jarring intrusion into the surreal quiet. I picked it up, my fingers trembling, the plastic cool beneath my touch. The screen glowed, displaying the date, year, 2016. Month, September, day, 12. My 17th birthday had passed 2 weeks prior. I was 17 again. My chest tightened, a vice-like grip squeezing the air from my lungs. The poison, his voice, the betrayal, it all rushed back, a torrent of memory. This time I would not love him. The vow solidified in my mind, a cold, hard stone. 3 days later, I saw him again. The universe, it seemed, had a cruel sense of irony. Jian stood in the hallway, leaning against the lockers, surrounded by a small cluster of admiring students. He looked thinner, younger, the sharp angles of his face less defined, but his eyes still burned with the same fierce pride, the same unyielding ambition. He caught my gaze across the bustling corridor. He looked at me, not with warmth, not with recognition, certainly not with affection. His gaze was a flat, unblinking assessment, filled with a familiar indifference. In my first life, this was where it began. The careful approach, the concealed adoration, the slow, deliberate entanglement of our fates. This time, I walked past him. My footsteps were even, my gaze fixed straight ahead, an invisible barrier erected between us. He frowned slightly, a faint ripple disturbing the usual impassivity of his features. That tiny reaction, that flicker of surprise, almost made me laugh. The corner of my mouth twitched, a ghost of a smile. The power of a choice unmade. A week later, the familiar whispers reached me. I sat in the back of the classroom, feigning interest in a history lecture, my ears tuned to the hushed tones of the teachers in the hallway. Jian's tuition is overdue again, one murmured, her voice laced with concern. Such a brilliant student. It's a shame. The other side. We've tried every avenue. He refuses any direct aid. In my first life, a frantic energy would have seized me. I would have rushed to fix it, to weave my anonymous safety net around him before he even felt the pinch. Now, I waited. I watched. My heart, once so eager to serve him, remained still. The principal's office door, usually a beacon of authority, became a stage. I stood casually near the water fountain, pretending to refill my bottle, listening. Jian emerged, his jaw tight, a muscle twitching near his temple. He strode past me without a glance, his shoulders rigid. A few minutes later, the principal's secretary, Ms. Chen, bustled out, her expression a mix of frustration and pity. He refused, she muttered to a colleague, loud enough for me to hear. Said he didn't need charity. Such pride. The word echoed in my mind. Asterisk refused. Asterisk in my first life? He accepted anonymously, convincing himself it was merit aid, a testament to his own brilliance. This time, his unyielding pride won. My lips curved into a slow, private smile. Very well, the principal sighed, his voice carrying clearly through the thin office door. We'll have to inform him of the consequences. That evening, the familiar silver gleam of my family's private line felt different in my hand. I dialed the number I knew by heart, the one that connected me to the web of my family's influence. Hello, young master. Mr. Li's voice, smooth and deferential, greeted me. Withdraw the sponsorship offer for Jian. My voice was calm, steady, betraying none of the turmoil within. A beat of silence. The anonymous one. Young master. The one we prepared for the student at Elite Academy, that's the one. Very well, young master. It will be handled. Good. The line clicked dead. And just like that, I took everything back. Not just the money, but the future I had once so painstakingly crafted for him. The threads of destiny, once woven so tightly round us, began to unravel. A quiet satisfaction bloomed in my chest, a sensation far more potent than the desperate hope I had once clung to. This time, the throne would remain empty. With the threads of Jian's meticulously planned future unraveling, a new space opened in my vision. That's when I noticed him. Lin Mo. He was a quiet presence, almost ethereal, always sitting near the back window in our advanced physics class. His posture was perpetually relaxed, a stark contrast to Jian's coiled tension. His grades rivaled Jian's, a fact few recognized, as Lin Mo never sought the spotlight. Unlike Jian, he didn't glare at the world, didn't carry the weight of perceived injustice in his every glance. Instead, his gaze was often distant, thoughtful, as if observing a complex equation unfolding beyond the classroom walls. I learned through the school's informal gossip network that he worked evenings at a small, independent bookstore near campus, a place filled with the comforting scent of aged paper and quiet contemplation. One rainy afternoon, the kind where the sky wept in endless sheets, washing the city in a melancholic gray, I stepped inside that bookstore. The bell above the door chimed softly, a welcoming sound. The air was warm, smelling of old books and brewing tea. Lin Mo looked up from behind the counter, his eyes widening slightly in surprise. He wore a simple, dark apron over his school uniform, his sleeves rolled up to reveal slender, capable forearms. "You're not the type to buy second-hand novels," he said, his voice soft, almost a murmur, yet clear above the drumming rain outside. A faint amusement played at the corners of his lips. I moved deeper into the aisles, my fingers trailing over the spines of forgotten tales. "Maybe I am." I turned, meeting his gaze. He smiled faintly then, a gentle unfolding that seemed to chase away the gloom of the afternoon. It wasn't a dazzling smile, not one meant to captivate or charm, but rather a quiet, genuine expression that reached his eyes, crinkling them at the corners. It was the first genuine smile I'd seen in lifetimes, a warmth that settled deep within me, displacing a chill I hadn't realized I carried. A week later, the memory of that smile still lingered. I found him in the school library, hunched over a textbook, a solitary island in a sea of whispered studying. I approached his table, my shadow falling across his page. He looked up, his expression calm, expectant. "Would you accept sponsorship?" I asked, my voice direct, cutting through the hushed air of the library. He blinked, a slow, deliberate movement. His gaze was steady, assessing, devoid of the immediate defensiveness Jian would have shown. "For what reason?" "For being talented," I replied, equally direct. "For your potential." He studied me then, his eyes, the color of warm amber, searching mine. There was no avarice, no immediate calculation in them, only a quiet curiosity. "And what do you want in return?" he asked, his voice still soft, but with an underlying current of steel. He wasn't easily swayed. Honesty, I found, felt easier this time. The burden of secrecy, of hidden manipulation, was a weight I no longer wished to bear. "Nothing you're unwilling to give." Silence stretched between us, punctuated only by the rustle of pages and the distant hum of the air conditioning. It was a comfortable silence, not awkward, but filled with unspoken questions and measured consideration. Then, a slow exhalation. "I'll accept," he said, his gaze unwavering, "on one condition." My breath hitched. "What is it?" "No hiding. I don't want anonymous charity. If you help me, you stand beside me." My chest tightened, a strange, unfamiliar sensation. In my first life, I had begged to stay unseen, to be the invisible hand, the secret benefactor. Now, here was someone, this quiet boy in the library, asking me to step into the light, to be present. He was asking me to stay. "I agree," I said, the words feeling weighty, significant, a promise etched in the quiet of the library. The shift in my life was palpable, a tectonic plate moving beneath my feet. Jian struggled that year. Without the invisible safety net, the subtle nudges that once smoothed his path, he found himself facing the raw edges of reality. He worked longer hours, the exhaustion evident in the shadows beneath his eyes, the slight slump of his shoulders. His grades, once impeccable, slipped slightly, the pressure taking its toll. His temper, always sharp, grew even more brittle, snapping at classmates and teachers alike. He noticed me, of course. He noticed me spending time with Lin Mo. He saw us in the cafeteria, walking together after classes, sometimes even leaving the bookstore late in the evenings, engrossed in conversation. One afternoon, he blocked my path near the main entrance, his body a rigid barrier. His eyes, usually so dismissive, held a new, unfamiliar glint. "You're different," he stated, his voice low, a barely concealed accusation. I met his gaze, my own unwavering. "Yes, you used to look at me," he pressed, a flicker of something akin to confusion or perhaps even a nascent possessiveness crossing his face. And I prompted, tilting my head slightly, an invitation for him to finish the thought, to articulate the unspoken implication. He didn't know how. His jaw clenched, his gaze darting away for a moment, searching for the words that wouldn't come. The arrogance that usually armored him seemed to falter. "Did you need something?" I asked, my voice cool, detached. His jaw clenched tighter, a muscle jumping in his cheek. "No." But his eyes, despite his denial, lingered. They drifted past me, fixing on Lin Mo, who stood patiently by the staircase, a book in his hand, waiting. For the first time, I saw something in Jian's gaze that wasn't indifference, not even anger. It was uncertainty. A tiny, fragile crack in his impenetrable pride. Good. Sponsoring Lin Mo felt nothing like sponsoring Jian. It was a partnership, not a covert operation. Lin Mo updated me openly about expenses, meticulous in his accounting, even for the smallest purchases like new pens or bus fare. He refused unnecessary luxury, politely declining my offers for a more expensive laptop or a designer backpack. "My current one works perfectly fine," he said once, his fingers tracing the worn fabric of his backpack strap. "This money is for my education, for opportunities, not for frivolous things." His practicality was refreshing. When we entered university, and I tried to upgrade his apartment, suggesting a larger, more modern space closer to campus, he paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. Live with me instead, he proposed, his voice quiet, his eyes earnest. I froze, caught completely off guard. Why? So it's not charity, he explained, his gaze steady. It's partnership. We share the space, we share the cost, we share the journey. He was dangerous, I realized, in a completely different way than Jian. Not cold, not ruthless, but steady, unwavering. He offered an intimacy that was both startling and profoundly appealing, a shared vulnerability I hadn't anticipated. He wasn't afraid to ask for presence, for partnership from me. One night, during our second year of university, surrounded by the comfortable clutter of our shared apartment, the soft glow of our study lamps illuminating the pages of our textbooks, he asked quietly, his voice barely above a whisper, "Why me?" The truth pressed against my throat, a bitter, metallic taste. Asterisk because in another life, the man I loved killed me. Asterisk because I was afraid of choosing wrong again, of investing my heart and my resources into someone who would ultimately betray me. Asterisk the words hovered on my tongue, heavy with trauma and regret, but I didn't say them. The burden of my past was mine alone for now. Instead, I chose a different truth, one that resonated with the present, with asterisk him asterisk. Because you didn't look at me like I was beneath you for helping, I said. My voice, a little rougher than I intended. You didn't see it as a handout, but as an investment, a shared endeavor. He stepped closer, his presence warm, solid. I would never. His fingers brushed mine, a light, almost accidental touch that sent a jolt through me. This time, I didn't hide my feelings. I didn't pull away. I let the warmth of his touch linger, a silent acceptance of the connection forming between us. This touch, this quiet understanding, felt like a promise of something real, something enduring, built on transparency and mutual respect, not on the shifting sands of hidden agendas and unrequited devotion. By our final year of university, the landscape of our lives had shifted dramatically. Lin Mo, with his quiet brilliance and my unwavering, transparent support, had already secured multiple investment offers for his burgeoning tech startup. His company, focused on sustainable AI solutions, was generating buzz in the industry, a testament to his vision and relentless work ethic. He built his success brick by brick with integrity and in plain sight. Jian, on the other hand, had a rockier path. He was successful, yes, but his achievements felt smaller, harder won, tinged with a certain bitterness. He had to fight for every inch. Without the unseen hand guiding his way, his company, while respectable, lacked the innovative edge and rapid growth that Lin Mo's possessed. Our paths, once intertwined, now diverged sharply. He approached me again one crisp autumn afternoon, near the university's main gate, the fallen leaves crunching underfoot. The air was cool, carrying the scent of impending winter. He looked older than his years, lines of stress etched around his eyes. You sponsored him, he stated, his voice flat, devoid of its usual sharp edge, almost a confession. Yes, I confirmed, my gaze steady. I had nothing to hide. You could have sponsored me, he said, his eyes, once so dismissive, now held a flicker of something akin to resentment. I did, I reminded him, my voice soft, but firm. His eyes widened slightly, a ghost of surprise passing over his features. You refused. The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken regret. He remembered. The principal's office, the anonymous offer, his own unyielding pride. Silence stretched between us, thick with the weight of our shared, yet divergent, past. Something flickered across his face then, not just regret, but a dawning comprehension, a realization of the magnitude of his past choice. The arrogance that had once defined him seemed to crumble, revealing a vulnerability I had never seen before. You. Like me, he said, the words almost a question, a plea for confirmation. The past tense hung between us, a stark reminder of what was lost. Yes, my answer was simple, honest, acknowledging a truth that no longer held power over me. He swallowed, his throat working. You don't anymore. I turned my head, my gaze drifting across the sprawling campus lawn. Lin Mo was there, near the old oak tree, laughing softly at something his friend said, his head thrown back, sunlight catching the gentle curve of his throat. He was vibrant, unburdened. I learned, I said, turning back to Jian, my voice carrying a quiet finality. Jian's shoulders stiffened, a defensive posture. From what? He demanded, a hint of his old aggression returning, as if trying to reassert control over a narrative that had slipped from his grasp. From dying once. He frowned, his brow furrowing in confusion, his mind unable to grasp the literal truth of my words. He didn't need to. The knowledge was mine alone, a secret history that had reshaped my present. He just needed to understand the consequence. He just needed to know that the game had changed. The night Lin Mo's startup officially launched, the air thrummed with excitement. The venue, a chic rooftop bar overlooking the glittering cityscape, was packed with investors, journalists, and well-wishers. The clinking of glasses, the murmur of conversation, the upbeat music, it all blended into a symphony of success. Lin Mo, usually reserved, moved through the crowd with a quiet confidence, shaking hands, answering questions, radiating an effortless charm. He found me on the balcony, away from the main throng, where the cool night air offered a brief respite. The city lights stretched out beneath us, an endless tapestry of human endeavor. He leaned against the railing beside me, his shoulder brushing mine. "You've been afraid," he said gently, his voice low, cutting through the ambient noise like a surgeon's scalpel. I stiffened, a sudden chill creeping up my spine despite the warmth of his presence. "Of what?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The question felt rhetorical, he already knew. "Of giving more than you receive," he clarified, his gaze fixed on the distant horizon. But I knew he saw into me. "Of investing your heart, your resources, your very self, into someone who will only take and never give back. Of being used." My breath caught in my throat, a knot of old pain tightening in my chest. He saw it all. He saw the scars I thought I had hidden so well. He saw the vulnerability beneath the carefully constructed facade. He stepped closer, turning to face me, his hands gently framing my face. His thumbs brushed lightly over my cheekbones, a tender, reassuring touch. "I won't kill you for loving me." The world stilled. The distant city sounds faded. The music became a faint thrum. He didn't know how literal that fear was, how deeply embedded the trauma of my first life still lingered. But somehow, impossibly, he understood it anyway. He understood the core of my terror, the very essence of my deepest wound. "I don't need saving," he continued, his voice a balm. "I need someone beside me. Someone to share the journey, the triumphs, the inevitable struggles. And I choose you, Lu Yichen. I choose all of you. Choose. Not use. Not tolerate. Not exploit. Choose." The word resonated deep within me, a profound echo in the cavern of my heart. It was a choice freely given, without expectation, without hidden agendas. Tears burned unexpectedly behind my eyes, hot and sudden. In my first life, I had begged for scraps of affection, for a fleeting glance, for a moment of his time. I had sacrificed my identity, my safety, my very life for a love that was never truly mine. In this life, someone offered it freely, openly, completely. I kissed him first. My hands, trembling slightly, rose to cup his face, mirroring his gesture. His lips were soft, warm, yielding. It was a tentative kiss at first, a brush of mouths, a hesitant exploration. Then, as his arms wrapped around my waist, pulling me closer, the kiss deepened. My tongue, emboldened, traced the seam of his lips, asking for entry. He parted them with a soft sigh, and our tongues met, a dance of tentative discovery, then a hungry intertwining. I tasted him, the faint sweetness of wine from the celebration, the underlying warmth of his skin, the fresh mint of his breath. It was an exchange, a giving and receiving, unlike anything I had ever experienced. There was no desperation, no hidden agenda, just a pure, unadulterated connection. I felt the raw vulnerability of my own yearning, and the profound, comforting strength of his reciprocation. His fingers tangled in my hair, holding me close, as if he too had been waiting for this moment across lifetimes. The kiss deepened, a silent promise exchanged under the vast, uncaring sky, yet feeling like the center of our universe. Years later, Jian became successful, though not legendary. He built his company slower, harder, without the hidden accelerants I had once provided. His name appeared in business journals, but never with the effusive praise of a self-made genius. Sometimes our paths crossed at business events, a fleeting encounter in the opulent halls of corporate power. He always looked at Lin Mo for a second too long, his gaze lingering, perhaps wondering what life would have been like if he had accepted help without pride, if he had chosen loyalty over ambition. But that was no longer my story. His choices were his own, and mine were now irrevocably different. One quiet evening, the city lights a distant hum outside our apartment window. Lin Mo rested his head on my lap, his soft hair brushing against my thigh. He was reviewing documents on his tablet, his brow furrowed in concentration, but his body was relaxed against mine. "Regret anything?" he asked lastly, his voice a low rumble against my skin, his eyes still fixed on the screen. "Yes," I admitted, my fingers idly tracing the line of his jaw. He looked up then, his eyes, warm and inquisitive, meeting mine. That I ever thought love had to be earned through suffering. He smiled softly, a genuine, easy smile that always reached his eyes. "Good thing you were reborn smarter." I brushed his hair back from his forehead, a tender gesture. "No." I leaned down, pressing a soft kiss to his lips, tasting the faint sweetness of the tea he had been drinking. "I was reborn lucky, because this time, I didn't fund my own destruction. I invested in someone who chose me back, openly, completely, and without condition." The soft glow of the bedside lamp cast long shadows across our bedroom. Outside, the city hummed a lullaby, a distant, muffled symphony of life. Lin Mo lay beside me, his breathing even, the rhythmic rise and fall of his chest a comforting presence against my back. Years had passed since that night on the balcony, years filled with shared laughter, quiet conversations, and the steady, unwavering growth of our connection. We built a life, brick by brick, not on hidden agendas or desperate longing, but on mutual respect and open affection. Tonight, however, a restlessness stirred within me. It wasn't a sense of regret, not anymore. It was more quiet introspection, a lingering echo of the journey that had brought me here. I shifted, turning onto my back, careful not to disturb Lin Mo. My gaze drifted to the ceiling, not the cracked plaster of my dorm room, but the smooth, elegant expanse of our modern apartment, a testament to a life built differently. Lin Mo stirred, a soft groan escaping his lips as he stretched, his arm flopping over my waist, pulling me closer. He burrowed his face into the nape of my neck, his warm breath ghosting against my skin. "Can't sleep," he murmured, his voice thick with sleep. "Just thinking," I whispered, my fingers intertwining with his, resting on my stomach. He nuzzled deeper, his lips brushing my skin. "About what?" "Everything," I confessed, a small, involuntary sigh escaping me. "How different it all is. How real." He chuckled softly, a low rumble in his chest. "Real is good, isn't it?" He lifted his head slightly, propping himself on an elbow, his eyes, still heavy-lidded, searching mine in the dim light. "You're still thinking about him, aren't you?" It wasn't an accusation, just an observation, a gentle understanding. I didn't deny it. Sometimes. Not with longing, not with pain. Just wonder how he carries the choices he made. Lin Mo's thumb stroked the back of my hand, a soothing gesture. "Everyone carries their choices. You learn that the hard way." "And you taught me the easy way," I replied, a genuine smile touching my lips. "Or at least, the honest way." He leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. "There's no shame in learning, Yichen, only in refusing to." He paused, his gaze thoughtful. "You ever resent it, that you had to go through all that to find this?" The question hung in the air, weighty and profound. I considered it, truly considered it. "No," I finally said, the word firm, resolute. The pain was immense, the betrayal absolute, but it forged me. It stripped away the illusions, the desperate need for external validation. It taught me the true cost of unrequited devotion. I turned to face him fully, my hand coming up to cup his cheek, my fingers tracing the strong line of his jaw. It taught me to recognize what I have now, to truly appreciate it. His eyes softened, mirroring my own emotion. "And what do you have now, Lu Yichen?" he asked, his voice a playful challenge, yet imbued with deep affection. "I have a partner," I began, my voice thick with emotion, "who sees me, truly sees me. Not for my family name or my resources, but for who I am. Who accepts my help openly, and offers his own in return. Who doesn't demand I hide, but asks me to stand beside him." I leaned closer, our foreheads touching, the warmth of his skin seeping into mine. "I have someone who chooses me every single day, not out of convenience or ambition, but out of genuine connection. Someone who makes me feel safe, truly safe, in a way I never thought possible." His fingers tightened around mine. "And I have someone," he countered, his voice a low, husky whisper, "who is brilliant and complex and fiercely loyal. Someone who, despite having every reason to build walls, chose to open his heart again. Someone who challenges me, inspires me, and makes every day an adventure." He pulled back slightly, his eyes sparkling with a mischievous glint. "And someone who, I suspect, has been secretly wanting me to kiss him senseless all night." A gasp escaped me, quickly swallowed by a soft laugh. "Is that so?" I teased, my heart quickening its pace. "Oh, I know so." He grinned, a slow, sensual curve of his lips. He leaned in, and his mouth found mine, not with the hesitant tenderness of our first kiss, but with a confident, knowing hunger. His lips were soft, yet firm, moving with an exquisite slowness that promised both pleasure and patience. He tasted of mint and something uniquely Lin Mo, a subtle sweetness I had come to crave. Our mouths met, a soft pressure, then a gentle parting as his tongue traced the seam of my lips, asking for entry. I opened for him willingly, eagerly. His tongue, warm and seeking, slipped inside, exploring the soft cavern of my mouth, dancing with mine in a slow, sensual rhythm. I moaned softly into the kiss, my fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer, desperate to deepen the connection. His lips sucked gently at my lower lip, then my upper, a soft, wet sound escaping as he drew my tongue into his mouth, suckling it with a tantalizing slowness that sent shivers down my spine. The exchange of saliva was intimate, primal, a blurring of boundaries that left me breathless. His hand, which had been stroking my back, now slipped beneath my silk pajama top, his fingers cool against my warm skin. He explored the curve of my spine, then moved upwards, his thumb brushing against my nipple through the thin fabric. A jolt, sharp and electric, shot through me. I arched into his touch, a soft whimper escaping my throat. His kiss deepened, becoming more insistent, his tongue now swirling, caressing, demanding. I met his fervor with my own, my body responding to his every move, every subtle pressure, every wet sound. He broke the kiss, a soft gasp escaping him, his forehead resting against mine. His breath was ragged, hot against my face. His eyes, dark and heavy-lidded, stared into mine, reflecting the raw desire that pulsed between us. You have no idea, he whispered, his voice hoarse, how much I love watching you bloom. How much I love making you feel this. My own breath hitched. Show me, I pleaded, my voice barely audible, my body aching with the delicious tension. He didn't need further invitation. He pulled back, his eyes still locked on mine, as he slowly, deliberately began to shed his pajamas. The soft silk whispered against his skin as he moved, revealing the lean, muscular planes of his body. His cock, already thick and firm, sprang free, jetting proudly from the nest of dark hair at his groin. It pulsed slightly, a dark vein throbbing along its length, the head glistening with a bead of pre-cum. My gaze dropped, drawn to its magnificent size, a wave of heat washing over me. He watched my reaction, a slow, confident smile spreading across his face. Beautiful, he breathed, his voice a low growl, as he reached for the hem of my pajama top. With a slow, languid motion, he lifted it, exposing my chest. His eyes lingered on my nipples, already hard and erect, dark against the pale skin. He leaned down, his tongue flicking out, tracing a path from my collarbone down to my breast, sending a fresh wave of shivers through me. He took one nipple into his mouth, suckling gently, his teeth scraping lightly, sending exquisite sensations through my entire being. I gasped, arching my back, my hands clutching at his hair. He worked his magic, moving from one breast to the other, his mouth wet and hot, his tongue swirling, teasing, until my entire chest was alight with sensation. My hips began to buck instinctively, seeking the friction, the contact. He moved lower, his hands deftly unbuttoning my pajama bottoms, sliding them down my legs, until I was completely naked beneath him. The cool air brushed against my heated skin, only to be replaced by the warmth of his body as he pressed himself against me, his hard cock nudging against my wet pussy, a soft friction that made me moan. So, wet for me, he whispered, his voice a low thrum against my ear. His fingers found my clit, circling it gently, then stroking it with a slow, deliberate rhythm that sent fresh waves of pleasure coursing through me. My pussy, already slick and aching, pulsed around his fingers. I could feel the delicious pressure building, a sweet agony that promised release. He shifted, his knees nudging my legs apart. He positioned himself between my thighs, the head of his cock pressing against my entrance. I gasped, my eyes fluttering shut, anticipating the delicious invasion. He moved slowly, deliberately, giving me time to adjust, to savor the moment. The tip of his cock slid inside, a warm, blunt pressure, stretching me, filling me. I let out a soft cry, a mixture of pleasure and anticipation. He paused, letting me adjust, his eyes fixed on my face, watching my reaction. Tell me if it's too much, he murmured, his voice laced with concern. Even as his hips began to move, a slow, teasing thrust that pushed him deeper. No, I choked out, my voice raw with desire. More. Please, more. He smiled, a triumphant, sensual grin, and began to thrust, slowly at first, then picking up pace. The feeling of him inside me was incredible, a deep, full pressure that filled every inch of my being. Each thrust was a delicious invasion, a rhythmic plunging that sent shockwaves of pleasure through my entire body. My hips rose to meet his, our bodies finding a primal rhythm, a dance of pure sensation. The sound of our bodies slapping together, the wet slicking of his cock sliding in and out of my pussy, the soft squelching as air was pushed out, filled the room, a symphony of our shared passion. I wrapped my legs around his waist, pulling him deeper, wanting to feel every inch of him. His balls slapped against my ass with each powerful thrust, a rhythmic thud that added to the overwhelming sensory overload. My orgasm built quickly, a crescendo of sensation tightening in my core, spreading outwards like wildfire. I cried out, my body arching, trembling violently as the pleasure consumed me. He continued to thrust, deeper, harder, his own climax building. I could feel him nearing, the sudden tensing of his muscles, the guttural groan that escaped his lips. With a final, powerful surge, he came, a hot, thick gush of cum filling me, pooling deep inside my pussy. His body shuddered against mine, his breath ragged, his head falling onto my shoulder. We lay there for a long moment, our bodies still intertwined, slick with sweat and cum, the aftershocks of our shared climax rippling through us. His weight was heavy, comforting, a testament to the profound connection we shared. He eventually shifted, pulling out slowly, the sensation of his cock sliding out a lingering ache. He rolled to his side, pulling me close, spooning me against him. His hand found my pussy, still sensitive and throbbing, and he stroked it gently, easing the lingering ache. See, he whispered, his voice still hoarse, a triumphant note in it. No thrones needed. Just us. I snuggled deeper into his embrace, my heart full, my body sated. Just us, I agreed, a contented sigh escaping me. The past was a memory, a lesson learned. The present was warm, safe, and utterly real. And the future, with Lin Mo by my side, felt boundless.